This is MJ. I love Star Wars. Welcome to my fully operational analysis. So this is less fully operational analysis and more a fully operational preview to an analysis that will come at a later date, which is to say that I read or listened to the audiobook of Queen's Peril. I enjoyed Kat Tabor's work. I liked her in Clone Wars as Padme and mostly Padme. I don't know that they used her much in other places, although I can think of one or two instances. And then she also read Queen's Shadow, which was also written by E.K. Johnston, and we're getting more of that. And this book is actually a lead into Phantom Menace, which I didn't remember. I don't think that's a spoiler. I really hope it's not, because this is supposed to be my spoiler-free first thoughts. And my first thoughts are, I liked it. It was apparent to me that this was a YA novel, and that does not mean that it was poorly written, but there were some things in it, there were some elements of it that were kind of casual and, I don't know, not very seriously dealt with, or they felt kind of like a tiny bit pat, or a tiny bit like they were playing down to the audience. And I didn't appreciate those elements, but overall, I really did enjoy the book. I enjoyed the closer look into Padme and her handmaidens that we got, and I enjoyed learning so much about Naboo and their royal procedure, their traditions. And really, we only scratched the surface. I would say we probably learned a little bit less than we do in Leia, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray, which is another YA novel about, obviously, Leia. But overall, I really enjoyed this. There was interesting. There was some action in this, but most of the action was all interpersonal and very much based on relationships, which this is a Star Wars book. And the only other time I can think of that, and I haven't read a bunch of the EU or anything, but the only other time I can think of that being true is the courtship of Princess Leia, which is about, Leia and Han finally cementing the fact that they fall in love with each other and kind of moving forward, in their relationship. And anyway, and you could say that happened in the films, but like, how much detail did we get in Empire and Return of the Jedi? Not much, and it all evolved later in the EU. But regardless, that's getting distracted from this book. I enjoyed each and every one of the handmaidens. I enjoyed Quarsh Panaka and his wife's name. She wasn't in it as much, so I won't say anything about that. But I really enjoyed how Johnston wove the narrative of Padme and her handmaidens into the overall narrative of Star Wars as a whole, or at least the Phantom Menace. I should really say it's like pre-Phantom Menace and then into Phantom Menace, and that was really neat. And it kind of edges into going beyond, because it's all about Padme, Queen Amidala, in the beginning, and in her start, and it kind of jumped around a little bit to different places in the timeline, but it stayed all pretty tight. And I liked all the insights we got, and I liked what they did with some of the characters I did not expect to be in it, but that were all in the Phantom Menace. So I'm not going to give too much away, but I did want to note that it is very much a book that leads into Phantom Menace and kind of goes beyond it. And I really appreciated that. It almost reminds me of spiritually how Clone Wars leads into Revenge of the Sith and then kind of goes beyond it. If you've seen all of Season 7 of the Clone Wars, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Of course, it's not to the same scale, and they're on totally different topics, but there's a bit of a mirroring or an echoing or a setting up of rhyming in this book to the rest of Star Wars, and I thought that was cool. So in some ways, it mostly was just a lead into Phantom Menace, but through this particular lens of Padme and her handmaidens, and from the side of Naboo. But it also kind of echoed things that were to come in the future in Star Wars, and that was pretty interesting. So I enjoyed it a lot. It almost seemed like it would be a really good introduction to somebody who's kind of new to Star Wars, like maybe a 12 or 14-year-old girl who hasn't seen all the movies yet, but who wants to read this book about like a girl in Star Wars. It could be a really good foothold for somebody like that to get into, like I said, Star Wars. So I thought it was really cool. I liked it, and I will have a full review. I'm going to try something experimental and really go intense with what I do and what I say in that future review. I'm just going to go ahead and let you know my plan is to go through each chapter, to listen to the book again, go through each chapter, and make sure to make notes. And then I'm going to look at all those notes. And there's 25 chapters plus 5 preludes plus a prologue. So that means there's 31 separate, bits of story or little chapters of the story overall, even though 5 of them are called I call 5 of them interludes, and one of them is defined as the prologue in the book. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see. It could end up only being like a 15-minute analysis slash review, or it could end up being a lot longer. We'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, that's my spoiler-free thoughts. First thoughts on it. It was good overall. I definitely think you should like it. I will say, though, I will be truthful, not negative, truthful. I think the book would have trouble standing on its own. I think the book would have trouble standing 100% on its own. If you like Star Wars, if you're familiar with it, it works better. I think knowing all this other stuff really helps me. And that's not bagging on, or that's not an attack against Johnson. It's just, I think the way she chose to write it and the way she chose to approach it, this is for a reader who already is familiar with the films, and it's not really for a new person, even though I said it could draw somebody in. It could. I don't know how well it would do. But the characters who are there are compelling, and I'm interested in seeing more of their stories, and it actually made me want to go back and listen to Queen Shadow again, because it felt like, I'll have more fun with it that time, because this is a prequel to that, and then Queen Shadow takes place after, of course. So that's all I have to say, and I'd like to know your thoughts if you've already read the book. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, and share to help me grow. Don't forget to subscribe to keep current with each release. Chat with me on Twitter at MJ_scribe. Visit mjmunoz.com/podcasts to find the multiple feeds in which I analyze Star Wars, tokusatsu, comics, and more. Visit mjmunoz.com/support for links to my Redbubble and Coffee pages to help me out. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Until next time, be well, and remember, in balance lies power to see through dark and walk in light.